So today I did want to take it maybe a little bit into the theory so that we're a little bit more grounded into the theory and really thinking about the differences. Because nowadays there are many um, styles of language coaching, let me put it that way. And the question is, what is the difference between some of the language coaching that is out there and us? And I do believe that we are the only system, method, and approach that is actually crystallized. Everything else is about applying coaching techniques, models, conversations, but we actually have a structure and a crystallized approach. And I think that is the major difference. But in the end, the question is also, what are we integrating from coaching into everything that we do? So that's the focus of today. Thank you for being here, everybody. I've just seen Andrea. Good morning, Andrea. Good to see you too. It's been a while since I've seen you. So good to see you. And Elizabeth as well over in Norway. Hopefully you're okay and enjoying that beautiful midnight sun next week. Absolutely. You'll be how many hours of sunshine? 15, 16?
Uh, yeah, yeah,
Wow. I experienced it
or
once
more, or more. Yeah.
yes, 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 yes. It's the most phenomenal thing when you're walking around at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's bright sunshine. It's incredible. Really doesn't, you don't want to sleep
No.
when it's like that. Okay, so here we go. Integrating professional coaching. Now, some of these slides might be a little bit different for some of you. So I'll highlight the ones that might be new. Firstly, I'd like to do something that Richard Boyatzis normally does. And I'd like all of you to think of a time when you were maybe at school or in a learning environment and you felt good. Maybe you received some praise. Maybe you managed to do something. Maybe you were in a group and you were the one that was feeling more at ease with everything. How about sharing in the chat box what's coming up for you? Anybody able to share in the chat box? Virginia, aha moments that you can remember? Yes. Anybody else? Feeling delighted, pride, yes, the moments of pride when we manage to feel it. Now, I'd like you to hang on to the feeling, and we're going to come back to this later. Vision is something that, as a coach, I need to make sure that we are also talking about somebody's vision. Even in a learning process, we need to get the vision out. Now, this is a new slide for many of you. Last autumn, the COVID report came out in the UK. And I mean, pages and pages and pages and pages in this report. If you're interested, there is the link. And a lot of things that came up were connected to education, learning, schooling, and development of children. A lot of evidence that social and emotional skills had declined. The loss of routine, the loss of connection with others really had an impact on a lot of children. Lockdowns as well. Even problems to sleep, disrupted sleep patterns, And a lot of learners found remote learning very difficult. And they admit that closing schools down actually removed key support systems available for children. I'm going to say even young adults. And we know there is a lot of research, and this is just a little snapshot of some of the research relating to mental health problems, learning loss, anxiety, increased academic anxiety, difficulties in learning, aggression increase, all of those negative impacts. Now, I just want to go into another direction because we talk about teaching, and pedagogy is the art and the science of teaching and learning. And traditionally, we could go back to ancient Greece, medieval times, to look at that sort of philosophy or that belief that teaching is this transfer of knowledge from an authoritarian teacher. And that was originally the model. I speak and you listen. However, when you look at some of the Greek philosophers, they had a totally different way of doing it. When you look at the philosopher Helena, or you look at Socrates, they were doing it differently. Later, if we go sort of a walk through history, we have trends, and we first start to see the active learner or the possibility of having active learners, not just passive learners, in the 19th and early 20th century. And some of the forerunners, many of you know, Maria Montessori. We also have Waldorf schools, Rudolf Steiner as well. Froebel with his kindergarten model. John Dewey saying that education is preparation for life itself. Piaget, and yes, Vygotsky, social construction. And then we come into the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and we see things like Bloom's taxonomy, taking learning goals into the cognitive levels. We have Brunner, we have Bandura. And we're moving into sort of the decade of the brain in the 1990s, where you had the early neuroscientists like Damasio and Ledoux, who started to bring information about learning in the brain and emotions in learning. Notice that all of this is 30, 40 years ago. And here we are today, still talking about all of this. And are we implementing it? I think this is the big question. So, where are we, 21st century? Well, I actually like this citation from Biesta, where the teacher brings something intentional, interruptive, and meaningful to the learning encounter. And what we are looking at today is how to embody what we know as teachers, trainers, educators into our practices. And this, I believe, is the sticking point. Because a lot of the time as teachers, we are running on automatic programs or the models that we received as children that we also perceive to be the way. And this is changing now because so many of us are realizing that the old practices are not working anymore. So we're really coming into this, I believe, understanding that it's not only about the art of teaching, but it really is about awakening the full human potential of our learner. No matter what they are learning, we are really trying to tap into their potential. Now, just as I say that, my mind has literally gone back to my Spanish student who did this trial course with me last December, where he was being observed by some of our coaches. And it's a demonstration of the whole process of neurolanguage coaching. When he came into those sessions right from the beginning, in his first session, he came in feeling in his late 20s like a school dropout. He didn't connect with the teachers at school. He rebelled against them. They didn't help him. He didn't learn. He was very bright, but he just didn't get anything from the schooling process. He left school feeling a failure. When he started learning with me, all of this kept coming out at the beginning. As he started coming into this process of learning Spanish with me, he started to realize just how amazing his brain was patterning the language naturally, how he was absorbing what we were learning very easily. And towards the end, he started to really believe in his own potential. And one of the things he said at the end of the course when we did the goal review was, I now believe in myself. And for me, that was the greatest impact of that whole learning process. It really was. The more we help people on a holistic level, the more they are going to be receptive to learning and taking in information. Now, I do want to give you a little bit of a snapshot of the ELT market size prediction because it's quite shocking, really. 129.3 billion estimated growth in this industry. Now, I see on LinkedIn and I see all over the place how people are saying this industry is doomed and we're in a rut and this is. I don't think we are. I think we are regenerating, recalibrating. Many of us are really recalibrating to what the learners of today need. Now, I'm not sure if this prediction was made pre AI incursion. I can imagine it was. But even with the onset of I still think that we as coaches are the perfect complement to assisted learning with AI. Now, in a minute, we're going to look at the coaching side as well. Now, love them or hate them, World Economic Forum, many parts I really do not enjoy. However, the leveraging innovative pedagogies I absolutely love because they talk about instilling personalized and self-paced learning, accessible and inclusive learning, problem-based and collaborative learning, and lifelong and student-driven learning. And for me, certain words in this indicate professional coaching. Lifelong learning, that's embodying the coaching mindset. Student-driven growth, student-driven learning, that's client growth, ICF competence rate. And it really is about bringing in that personalized and self-paced. We're all different. And this is where hopefully, the more of us that change, the more we are going to start changing the systems. Because the systems based on groups of 30 to 40 kids in one class, based on all the kids have to follow what the teacher says, in this age of neurodiversity, doesn't work. So we need to be thinking about smaller groups, more reaching the learners more. And even I would say, more focused learning. So instead of having kids there 8 hours a day, maybe they're there less time, but with more personalized groups. And then getting them to be autonomous and doing things by themselves, and then coming into the groups with the coach. Just some ideas going around in my head. So, looking at the solutions, well, I do think there are these three as the major keys to helping us to unlock future education. Metacognition is part of that coaching process. Neuroscience, if you take it into the brain-based space, and professional coaching. Now, let's just have a look at professional coaching. I want to take you into some exciting statistics. The current global market size in 2024, 6.25 billion. Projected to grow by 2025, well, that's already gone, 7.3 billion. The revenue from coaching, 4.65 billion. That was in 2022. Look at that, a 60% increase since 2022. Sorry, since 2019. 145,500 active coaches in 2024. Now, you can imagine that these figures are increasing rapidly. The coaching profession is growing. It is growing. It's not stagnating. And one of the maybe issues that we have is that coaching is an attractive profession for people who want to leave their professions. For example, financiers, bankers, who want to then go into the consulting space, the private space. They then become financial coaches, health coaches. So you see that the industry is growing with thematic coaching. And of course, we are one of the flagships for language coaching. Now, just some interesting data about how coaching has an impact on return on investment in companies. So, in a survey, 87% replied that executive coaching had a high return on investment. So, whatever they were paying for the coaching was then bringing benefits to the companies. And they saw a strong correlation between coaching and increased employee engagement. Now, this makes me remember back in about 2017, one of our coaches, Christy, was working over in Japan in a corporate environment. And she was working with a group of language learners. When she got her feedback at the end, the HR manager asked to see her. And she was a little bit frightened. She went. And the HR manager said to her, I'd like to thank you because this language learning process that you've taken them through has not only impacted their language learning, it's also impacted their overall motivation at work. And that's something that we've never, ever seen before. How amazing was that? She was terrified, but in fact, the feedback that she got was phenomenal. And this is what happens. Look at what happened with my learner, Yannick, in December, January, February, with his belief about himself. So coaching impacts on deeper levels. And here we can see the impacts. Now, obviously, this is life coaching, what we're seeing here, the statistics from life coaching. Even this is leadership, executive coaching as well. And again, it's showing how coaching enhances the leadership development, reinforcing trust, transforming communication with team, influencing mindset, and then because of the greater trust, more sharing, more engaging, and more productive work environments. So definitely there are great impacts with coaching. Now, let's go a little bit into the theoretical basis of coaching. One of the grounding theories is, in fact, self-determination theory. And we speak about this a lot. In many of my webinars, I'm including this now. Back in the 1980s, 1990s, the psychologists Deci and Ryan created this theory about how we all have three core psychological needs to thrive. So remember, this is to thrive. Autonomy, the need to feel that we master, so mastery, competence, and feeling connected. And when these three needs are met, that's when we are more likely to experience the intrinsic motivation, well-being, and personal growth. Now, coaching really does enhance autonomy. It helps you to reach the mastery. And it also brings in the connection, the relatedness, that support, accountability, soundboard in the background. And when you put that together with Maslow, then we really are looking at the top of the pyramid. And self-actualization, where we are achieving our full potential and living authentically. And again, as a coach, we are assisting or accompanying people to do that. Whether it's life coaching, executive coaching, language coaching, any type of coaching, that's what you're doing. Now, we could also bring in here the study of adult learning, andragogy, from Knowles. And he also talks about the characteristics of adult learning as being autonomy, feeling motivated, knowing where to get your resources. We know as adults what we need to do, and self-monitoring. And adults, definitely, we are more suited for this. I would even suggest that some teenagers are as well. And that's when we come to Richard Boyatz's intentional change theory. Now, I personally believe that intentional change theory, the 5 stages, are definitely learning stages. They're part of the learning process. Now, the first stage is the ideal self, the personal vision. What do you want to achieve? And then we're looking at, well, where are you now? What are your strengths? What are the weaknesses? What do you need to do to get to the vision? Then we're going to create the learning agenda, the steps. And then together, you are going to implement the steps, and I'm going to be your soundboard accompanying you, and you're engaging in that journey. And finally, the resonant relationship that we have, the support system around you. Now, there's a lot of research demonstrating how emotional intelligence is key for learning. Positive emotional attractors are key for learning. And personal vision is key for learning. And this is one of the quotes from Richard's book, The Science of Change, that I absolutely love. our hopes, dreams, and profound sense of purpose are the motors of change and sustainable learning. And this is where, right at the beginning, I was trying to get all of you to remember a moment in time when you were feeling good, positive. And when you go back into that moment of feeling, maybe the praise, the pride, whatever it was, you were probably activating this positive emotional attractor state. Back in 2013, this was the first research demonstrating the neuroscience of coaching. How the way that we communicate, the way that we help our learners to vision the future, create the goals, set their mind on what they want to achieve, and focus in on their hopes and their dreams, has much greater activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, the motivation networks, the inspiration networks, than when we are coaching for compliance. What's the problem? What do you have to learn? Why can't you learn it? What have you done so far? What's not working? Which is activating that negative emotional attractor state, fight or flight, sympathetic nervous system kicking in, and feelings of guilt, feelings of obligation. This is key. And as we go into more consciousness when we're coaching, when we're communicating, we become more conscious of what is happening in our learner's brain. And this is where definitely coaching is not only motivational talk. It's not the rah, rah, come on, yes, you can do it. That's the sports coach. That's what you're seeing in the World Cup. That's not us. When you go into that coaching for vision, it is actually activating the default mode network. This is activated when you start to vision things and you think about your ideal self. So default mode network, parasympathetic nervous system. When you're going into issues, problems, actually you're activating the task priority network. And as Anthony Jack, the neuroscientist involved in this research, clearly states, these networks are antagonistic. You cannot have both on at the same time. So either one or the other. So the coaching style is crucial. Now, let's just take this into another direction, because obviously in a learning process or in anything in life, you are going to have both. You are going to need to understand what is the issue, what do we need to do. So you get them into the rational, logical, analytical, but then you say, okay, well, where do you want to get to? How do you want to, where do you see yourself at the end of this? What's the vision here? So you are the one who is, with your communication, you are helping them to navigate these different states. Now, just one caveat here. Going into rational, logical, analytical thought does not mean that it is always activating the sympathetic nervous system. That's one thing to be very, very clear about. So you may go into a rational, logical, analytical question and not activate sympathetic nervous system. You're not going into a fight or flight. You're simply going into a rational, logical state of mind. However, when you get somebody focusing on their vision and you really get them into that vision, it will always activate the parasympathetic nervous system and the default mode network. Now, they actually call this toggling. They call it, we have to understand, you and I, as coaches, teachers, educators, we have to understand how to toggle between one and the other. So, helping them to activate either default mode or task priority. Default mode, task priority. Coaching, obviously, is helping us to do that. And there you have the results. Again, in 2015, they took that research a little bit further, and we see how that positive emotional attractor state is activating all of those areas. And if you're focusing on challenges, issues with a negative state, you're activating that sympathetic stress response. Now, let's just talk about this a little bit more, because the ideal self is helping learners to move away from the ought self. What should you do? And I think sometimes as teachers, we do focus a lot on shoulds, need. You need to do this. You should do this. You must do this. Whereas if we get them into the could, what could change? Where could this take you? And inviting them to create that vision, you're going to also get them into that growth mindset. A little bit later, we're going to look a little bit more into the Carol Dweck. So Carol Dweck, famous for her growth mindset research and this beautiful qualification of children in exams. There's not a pass fail, but there's a pass and there's a not yet. And that is so beautiful to say to somebody, you're not yet there, you're on the journey. Instead of you failed, which is bringing out the ought self, you ought to have passed. So it's very, very key, again, with coaching, how we communicate, and we're moving away from that constant reminder of what they ought to do and ought to be. Now, in the real self, we're trying also to encourage them to evaluate their strengths. It's not only about where are you now, it's also about, well, who are you? Who are you? What are your strengths? What have you achieved so far? How can you bring that and use it, harness it for what you want to achieve now? And then creating the plan. But here, everybody, you can see, well, firstly, you can see my spelling mistake, which I've just seen. I'll see if you're all awake and I'll let you see if you can find that. You can see that the curricula based would need to be, oh, Ollie, then there's 2 spelling mistakes. I can see another one. The curricula would need to be adapted to being more personalized. How can we do that in schools? Not easy, huh? So yes, learning journeys should be learning plans for students, which we're then bringing into safe spaces, psychologically safe spaces. And teachers, trainers, educators are those resonant relationships. And by the way, as teacher, trainers, educators, we're managing our own emotions very carefully before we come into the classroom, because we know that emotional contagion is real. So that's the application of the intentional change theory. So we've looked a little bit at this grounding theories in coaching. And this is where I do think that professional coaching is perfect to be integrated and fully infused. Firstly, as the partnership, the coach is the partner, the resonant relationship. Coaching also is supporting reflection, promoting growth mindset, promoting learner autonomy and ownership of their learning. And we just then move into this role of facilitators. Provocateur par excellence is my favorite expression, that we are trying to provoke learning insights. And this is where I do think we are emerging as a new type of educator. Just to say, coaching and education has been around for over 25 years. There's a lot of research on this. However, it's always been teachers receiving sessions with a coach. It's never been about teachers becoming the coach. And that's what's happening now. This is a new phenomenon. Now we have teachers becoming coaches. So teachers undergoing professional coach training, receiving that training, and then using it or embodying it. Because personally, I do think once you go through professional coach training, it's something that you embody. It changes your whole pattern of communication. It changes your whole way of communicating with somebody else. And that's why I personally do think that we are becoming coaches. How do we change the way we communicate? Well, we're definitely enhancing communication. We're definitely going deeper into the way that we listen. Now, those of you who have trained with me, you know that we go through reformulation practice. We go into much more silence. We go into much more consciousness. What's happening in my brain when I'm listening to somebody? And for those of you who are new to this webinar, I would love you to, after today, observe yourselves when you're listening. At what point does your brain start kicking in with activity? And be honest with yourselves, because when you start activating, you're not fully listening. And the challenge is, how can I listen with a quiet brain? That's going to be the challenge. So reformulating, clarifications, silence, powerful open questions. Many of you know that I confess to being 20 years ago the do you, would you, could you, have you queen. Every single question that came out my mouth was do you, could you, would you, have you, will you, are you, could you, do you. It was unbelievable. And the worst thing was, most of the time I wasn't conscious of those questions. And when you start to bring in that consciousness, it takes so much time to change the habit. Now, as a coach, if we want to be facilitators or provocateurs, you have to ask open questions. What do you? How do you? What will you? What could you? What would you? Because you have to stimulate them to think for themselves. So we have to become very conscious of our questions, conscious of how we're giving feedback, conscious of how we are signposting and getting their brain to focus where we want it to focus. And conscious of how you are provoking those connections, helping their brain to scaffold. So changing the way we communicate does happen through coaching. And when you are using coaching communication, coaching conversations, coaching models, coaching techniques, you start to promote the learner autonomy, you start to be the soundboard, you start to impact them with your questions, you start to see how they go into insights, you start to become a catalyst for them, and they start to get more focused with specific goals. They go into the growth mindset of, yes, we can. And they also learn so much about themselves. At the end of the day, it optimizes learning. And just as we said earlier, Carol Dweck, back in 2011, 2012, I believe it was, she actually wrote the book Growth Mindset. And quite a few of her research experiments demonstrated that when children believed that they could change their brain was plastic, they could become more intelligent, it impacted their school results. So growth mindset is proven to have an impact. And as she says, do have a look at her TED Talks. She's got some fantastic things out there. They've shown the improvement with thousands and thousands of kids, and especially with those kids who are struggling. So how do we become more conscious of our new role? Well, this is where we have to be very, very careful that we don't fall back into the expected roles. And here we can pull a little bit from the theory of transactional analysis, where you have the traditional roles. Now, Irene at the Neurolanguage Coaching Conference, she gave a beautiful talk, I believe, on this topic. So it was definitely a talk that was brilliantly expanded on what I'm going to give you. We are in the expected role of the teacher. And your students are going to come in expecting you to behave in a certain way. When you stop behaving in that way, they could then become very resistant, shocked, and really turn it back on you and say, well, you're the teacher, you tell me. Why are you doing this? Because they don't understand what you are doing. And at that point, we really have to share. May I share with you the reason that I'm communicating in this way? And I would talk to them about the theories, Deci and Ryan, self-determination theory. I would talk to them about the brain, how we know that when somebody comes into that self-regulating, goal-setting space in the learning and they become autonomous, they really do achieve more. And we've seen from the research that it has an impact on performance and results. Now, I'm just going to pause a minute there because along the way, I've seen quite a few comments and questions. So, Naomi, just to say, in her TED Talks, Carol Dweck talks about her research with children, with school children. So definitely it's about learners. And provocateur is, for me, it's about the provoking the stimulus for them to then have and find their own response. So we are provoking insights, which they are having, definitely. Ollie, yes, the teachers are rekindling the hearts and challenging the toxic systems, which is money focused. Absolutely. Absolutely. Naomi, we're going through some of the key concepts now. And I think for the moment, those were the ones I'd seen. Magda, you're absolutely right. The more students know about the brain and the learning theories, the more they're willing to learn. And yes, it's almost like the curiosity hits the roof. They want to know more about themselves. They want to know more about maximizing, optimizing their own brain functions. Absolutely. Love it, Magda. I know that you're working with clients and doing a great job there. So you're seeing the impact that you have with that. So if we're changing the roles and we're now not teacher, student, we're now coach, coachee, we're actually bringing in equality. We're equal partners. I'm here to transfer knowledge. And I'm changing the script of the teacher. We're changing the way that we respond. For example, when they don't do what they should do, we're changing how we coach them around the vision. We spoke about that earlier. We're changing from the rah, rah, come on, to the compassionate. I'm sorry that you're feeling negative progress. I'm sorry that you're feeling bad about this learning process. What can we do to change it? And we're also changing how we troubleshoot problems. And we're going more and more into the silence. At the end of the day, and this is it's from business, it's from leadership. This particular research from Case Western talks about high quality connections. Well, I personally think that teachers become high quality connections for learners. And we are strengthening their cognitive mechanisms, their emotional mechanisms, and their behavioral mechanisms. That's what we're doing in the end. And, we said about emotional contagion. Well, this particular research from 2024, we know this. We know this intuitively. We know this from our gut. But now we really see that we learn and integrate information when it's presented from people that we like, the people that really affect us and connect us. And this really does influence beliefs, perceptions, and can enhance memorization. And it shows, this research shows how personal preferences impact learning. Now, I also think that as a coach, we go into that deeper bonding. Now, let's just look at the foundations of neurolanguage coaching, because on the left, you can see that's what we are integrating in brushstrokes from the neuroscience, the metacognition, the learning how to learn, and the self-regulated learning. And on the right, you can see what we are integrating from professional coaching. We've looked at the theory already. And also now we're going to look a little bit deeper into what are we integrating into the practice from professional coaching. Now, this particular focused webinar today is not on the neuroscience. We do quite a few on the neuroscience, so I'm just going to go into that very superficially. We become the bridge from the theory to the practice, and we are the ones that are integrating the neuroscientific principles, the neuropsychological principles, the emotional intelligence, infusing it into the learning process. The way that we communicate is with the coaching, but then the metacognition, optimizing learning, and implementing principles. Everything that we do has a reason. The whole system and process points back to the neuroscience and the brain-based research. And as we said, the metacognition is key. Now, coaching helps turn the mirror onto self. So as a coach, I'm constantly putting that mirror to my coachee. When they say to me, well, I don't know, well, what do you think? I've got no clue. Well, maybe, I don't know, what's coming up when you see this? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? So I'm trying to see if I can bring out insights, connections. And there's a lot of research showing the impact of metacognition in the learning process. I think last week we also talked about that. And helping them to learn how to learn and provoking and promoting their learner autonomy is also going to optimize the learning. Now, just coming back to this moment, because now I want to go into the direction of coaching today. And anybody can call themselves a coach. It's an unregulated business. Some weeks ago, I did hear of somebody saying in one country they are talking about bringing in regulations, which is interesting. I'm curious if that's going to be a snowball effect going into other countries. Let's wait and see. For the moment, anyone can call themselves a coach. And the one thing that sets people apart is professional coach training. And it may be from any of these institutions, bodies. The most recognized worldwide is the International Coach Federation. I would say in Europe, the European Mentoring and Coaching Council is also now coming on to a par with the International Coach Federation. Now, the ICF, the abbreviation for International Coach Federation, was founded in 1995 as a non-profit organization. It's still a non-profit. And it's setting out the standards, the guidelines, and the ethics for the gold standard of coaching. That's what they call it. And it is recognized worldwide. You will see that it has country, they call them chapters. So you have the ICF Spain chapter, ICF Switzerland chapter, ICF Germany, etc. And you can become a credentialed life coach through their criteria to become a life coach. Now, when I started my coaching training back in 2004, I honestly never ever envisioned that I would get to where I am today. And it's been a long journey, extremely long journey. And every single time I will say that I'm still learning and going deeper. When I first started, I did brain-based coaching with David Rock's approach, which is now the Neuro Leadership Institute. Brilliant brain-based coaching. Then I actually, I think it was about 2014, 15, I achieved the ACC. And I believe it was 2019, 2020, the PCC. And last year, after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I actually achieved the MCC. And I am an ICF registered coach, registered mentor as well. And there are a lot of our coaches who are going through this process to also develop themselves as life coaches. So quite a few of our neurolanguage coaches are now ICF, ACC, PCC as well. And every so often, the ICF go through this, what I call overhauling the standards. And in 2021, they actually overhauled the 11 coaching competencies. And they streamlined them into 8. Now, the word competence for a British person is a strange word because we always think that competence means ability, but the Americans take it as the word for skills. So this is actually the skill set that an ICF coach or anybody in this coaching professional space should have. So the skill set that we should possess. And in every single one of these, you have subheadings describing those skill sets. Now, recently, they've just overhauled the process for the ACC, PCC, and the MCC. And now a lot more emphasis will be going on to the mentors to be the ones who are going through the recordings and the improvement of the coaches in that process. So I'm actually still learning as I come into this new way or this new mentoring approach that will be starting from 2027. And at the bottom of that list, as you can see, the ICF also accredit programs. When I first started in 2012 with my courses, I was adamant that I wanted to get the ICF accreditation right from the beginning. And everybody called me crazy. In the language profession, I was heavily criticized. You don't need accreditations. Why are you bringing in accreditations? Now we're seeing how many, many language teachers, trainers, educators are coming into the ICF credentials or accreditations. So, Ollie, yes, I'm glad that I was crazy enough to stay focused. I'm also very grateful to my ICF mentor, who was Richard Bentley at that time, fantastic coach. And really, he was my mentor, helping me to get through that. Phil, no problem. Good to see you. Now, what is coaching? This is where many people think that coaching is just about telling people what to do, giving advice. And in fact, when you come into non-directive coaching, and we follow the style of non-directive coaching, the ICF follows the style of non-directive coaching. We are not there to tell people what to do. We're really there to, as we keep saying, to provoke insights, to facilitate creative thinking, thinking out the box, finding solutions, setting goals. What is it that that person wants to achieve? How can I tap into their unlocked potential? It's not therapy, it's not psychotherapy, it's not counseling, it's not mentoring. And there are clear delimitations around what coaching is and it's not. And when you go into the professional coaching space, you become very clear when it's going beyond your domain. And if that's the case, you have a duty to refer somebody to another professional. So, what are the elements of coaching? And I'm talking about the elements of coaching that we are bringing in, we are embodying. We're bringing in the structure. We're bringing in the goal setting, the goal review, the activity session, the activity setting, the action steps to achieve the learning, to achieve the goal. We're also bringing in the essence from the sports coach. So empowering, yes, but we're not telling them what to do. we're getting them to go into that learner autonomy, that self-regulation. We're tapping into their motivation, their intrinsic motivation. And we're helping them to reveal their commitment to the process. And as a coach, no judgment, neutral. I know that as teachers, we often go into a little bit of that judgmental space without realizing it. Now, as a coach, we have to be very, very clear that we are not demonstrating judgment, prejudice, negativity at any point. So, our communication actually, and I use the word entrenched, it needs to be entrenched and saturated with consciousness, awareness. Everything that I say has an impact on my learner, positive and negative. I may say something and see a flinch of, oh, and there I'm going to say, can I just check in with you? I've seen a little bit of a reaction there. Can I just check? Is it something that I said, or how are you feeling? What are you noticing? May we talk about it? So I'm going to open up the space to find out. And we mentioned earlier, this, I'm going to say, is almost like the skeleton communication around all of our coaching conversations. And this is key because this is almost like our everyday toolkit in everything that we say and do. And I love that word as well, honed. We really have to have honed communication skills. So when you come into neurolanguage coaching, we are using that coaching communication constantly to make the learning more brain friendly, to make the learning imbued with insights, creative thinking. But we're also using these coaching conversations to troubleshoot. And there may be conversations we need to have. And I'm talking about short, skillful coaching conversations around emotional triggers. If I'm sensing an emotional trigger, I need to come in and coach around it. If there's a problem with the learning, I need to troubleshoot the problem. Is it commitment? Is it motivation? Is it focus and attention? Is it can't memorize? What is it that we need to troubleshoot? Coach around and then focus on strategies to help. And coaching around learning how to learn. Finding out from that learner, what do you need? What's going to work for you? And as I said, if you're sensing something, we're going to open up the space. I also think that coaching is about honesty. Let's be honest. Okay, I'm hearing that you haven't had time to do your homework. That's fine. How do you feel about it? Not how do I feel about it? This is your learning process. How do you feel about it? What do you feel you could do that's going to help you to make some time? Lots of compassion as well. How can I help? What do you need? How can we change this? And even looking at coping strategies, learning strategies, maybe even asking if they are open to techniques for clarity or focus. Coaching conversations can be extremely powerful and they don't need to be long. They can be very, very short just to switch the way people think. And above all, we use the coaching communication when we are teaching. Now, I've done webinars on the model that we use, which is the PACT PQC. The PACT PQC is a mode of communication. It's a model which stands for placement, assessment, conversation, teach, powerful questions, and clarification. And that particular model serves as the framework when we are teaching something. And what it does, it keeps us in the shoes of the coach all the time. How? Well, because we're very, very gentle, non-directive. If I need to share more information, may I share with you? I'm always finding out, what do you know first? Because that's my starting point. If you know it, we don't need to go there. If you don't know it, we're going to come in. And when I'm transferring knowledge, I'm going to give you a bite-sized bit and then get you trying it out. And then I'm going to give you a little bit more and get you to try it out. So the traditional lecturing, the explaining, the long-winded monologue of the teacher, no more. It's going to be about, I give you a bit, let's try it together. I give you a bit more, let's talk it through. I give you a bit more, let's use it. So in this way, you are involving. Remember the Benjamin Franklin quote, involve me and I will learn. Remember the quote from Terence Doyle, neuroscientist, the person doing it learns it. So final slide for this morning, a little bit of a sort of an adapted paragraph around this research from Timperley et al. And Florian and Black Hawkins. They talk about adaptive and inclusive pedagogy. Now, I actually think that coaching does this. When we move into that space of using coaching as the communicative vehicle, this is what happens. We start to focus on responding to the diverse needs of students by modifying the way that we teach in real time and adjusting practices to meet learners' differences rather than expecting them to fit that one-size-fits-all approach. That's what coaching does. It honors each and every one of our learners. So I'm going to open the floor in a minute for questions. And I do want to end up with this. Once you go through professional coach training, it's very, very hard to go back. It's very, very hard to go back into that directive teaching mode. Because once you become a professional coach, it's actually something that you embody. And by the way, I always say you cannot learn coaching from an asynchronous course, from theory. Coaching is like learning to drive. You have to sit in the car and drive the car. And it's the same with coaching. You have to coach to develop the skills. It's like everything in life. Absolutely, Norman, it's a matter of practice. It really is. Practice makes perfect. It's not only that, practice reinforces the neural connections relating to that activity. And that's what we're doing. So once a coach, always a coach. Now, Virginia, yes, it's hard to go back. And actually, we don't want to go back. Once we've gone to that space, absolutely, yes. And you enjoy the process of co-creation, co-discovery, absolutely, yes. So for those of you who are interested, neurolanguage coaching, since 2012, we have been delivering our accredited programs The first introductory course is the language coaching certification, accredited by the ICF, accredited by the UK CP Standards Board, and also certified by Efficient Language Coaching. There are over 2,000 coaches in the world now. I believe we are in 85 different countries and multiple different languages. So this isn't just confined to ELT, it's not confined to English only. It really is. We have teachers of Chinese, for example, Virginia. We have, and I'm going to say coaches of Chinese, Virginia, and all different languages out there. We've even got an Izzy Zulu neurolanguage coach who is coaching kiddies with Izzy Zulu in Africa. She's amazing, by the way. And definitely a phenomenal network to be part of. And there you can see some of our network. I'm never gonna tire of showing this picture, everybody. Goodness, what an event. I'm still thinking, did it really happen? As you can see here, this was the conference that we just had in Sitges, 20th, 21st, and 22nd of May. It was absolutely phenomenal. Some of you were there in the audience. Unforgettable. And I'm already thinking how we can make next year's event, the 11th, unforgettable as well. So if you are interested, do have a look at our free e-course, which will give you some of the coaching nuances that you can really take away and start to introduce into the way that you communicate, not only with your learners, but also with friends, family, children. It has such an impact on the way we communicate. And if you do actually complete that e-course, you would be granted a 10% discount. And also from attending today, you would also be granted a 10% off of the language coaching certification course. Now there are some on the first box. Those are the courses coming up with me. Now, there are some also coming up in Spanish, Polish, French, Chinese, and Italian with our teacher trainers. Virginia is our amazing teacher trainer in Chinese. So she will be spearheading that training. And Anne-Marie is our teacher trainer in Germany. So she spearheads that training. I'm just seeing if there's any other of our teacher trainers here today. I don't think so. But if any of you are interested, do connect with those ladies in the chat box. And thank you. Thank you for being here. There are 94 people. Oh, no, sorry, 27 people. I'm seeing 94 messages. And I'm thinking, goodness, so many people are coming out of bed at this time of the morning on a Saturday morning. I know that many, as I said, signed up, over 100 signed up. They will be getting the recording. And thank you for actually being here in person. Now, let me stop the share. Any comments or questions about any of this? And when I say anything, I mean the professional coaching. Andrea, yes. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Just a couple of things I'd like to share. By listening through the whole webinar today, a couple of things came to mind. One is about the challenge I'm currently facing with my young students. I'm teaching Spanish. He needs to face an exam in a couple of years, and he needs to show he have a B1 level in Spanish. So the process is going through is for the kind of exam is, I would say, what you traditionally see in language teaching. So you will have to show some abilities and do a test. which is a public school test, basically. But
Yeah.
knowing him from many years and having taught him Italian first and then English, I know that if I were to teach him in the traditional way, he would simply switch off and not listen to me. So I'm finding a way now to bring him on board and get into what is the traditional assessment system in a way that is brain friendly for him. So I'm still in the process, but that's something I wanted to share as it is a challenge I'm currently facing. And there was one thing. The other thing is about. I was thinking back and how about the change theory by Richard Boyatzis, and how this is probably more something I'm saying on a personal level, but we go through changes. You find an ideal self, maybe, or a new self you want to be a direction to go to. But then your environment, which is highly important for your growth, sometimes brings you back to what you were before. And I personally experienced that through last month. I went through a very stressful period on a personal level, psychologically, and in a way, I forgot everything. It's like I went several steps back. I went back to my old self in a way. Felt I lost my self-center. And now that I'm taking some distance from all that stress and pressure, and finding myself again. So I believe the challenge here, how do you stay self-centered when you are riding the storm? Those are the two things which came to mind, Rachel. I'm sorry for the long monologue.
Yeah, no, Andrea, thank you so much for both of them. Let me start with the last one first. One of the key points we've said is the vision. And I know that whenever any of us lose our north, one of the things that will bring us back is the focus on the vision. And that's why it's very, very key to be very clear. What is my vision? What is my focus? What do I want to become? And once you've got that, that's then becomes the north that you keep coming back to. And yes, we keep going off track, but yes, we keep coming back to the vision. That's one thing that can help us to stay on track. But the other thing from the research as well, it proves that resonant relationships around you are key. And if what I'm hearing is that when you were kind of on track and you were going into your direction, there was this pulling you back in from people around you. So the question there could be, who could be supportive of you in that growth? And if it's not the people that normally are supporting you, who could support you from outside? So that could be another question. The resonant relationships around you and being very clear on the vision. Now, the one problem with the vision is that often our vision changes. As we go through life, we're not meant to just have one thing. We're creatures of multiple things in life. So it's might be that what you thought you wanted, you get there, and it might be something else. And then it might be something else, and then it might be something else. So it might be you are also in the process of maybe another vision is creating. And maybe that pulling you back is actually recalibrating the vision of what you want. So I think there's a lot of things around that could be influencing. And I'm hoping that from all of this, the resilience that you're creating, Andrea, is propelling you forwards. And this, I think, is the question for each and every one of us. We're all going to have those moments of setback and going backwards, and we might take 10 back to go 2 forward again. The most important is that you are going forward all the time. Even though it doesn't feel like it, you are moving forwards. So I'm hoping that might help a little bit.
It does.
And the second, the how old is the kiddie?
He's a teenager now. He's 14.
14.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, when I've worked with kiddies like this, and I worked with an Italian kiddie, same age, who had a horrendous time with the school system. And a horrendous time with the teachers, by the way, because they were horrible with him. And we actually talked about it. And we talked about how he feels with this archaic school system that doesn't match him, his personality, and life today. And we talked about the fact that it's something you've got to get through. Once you've done it, you can go out in the world and be you. And you can be free of them all. But the most important thing is, how do we get you through now? So I would be honest with him and help him with this, because he is dissonant. He's not resonating with the system. I don't blame him. I didn't resonate with the Goram system 40 years ago. Well, more than that. So I think it's about helping him to understand it's not him. He's not the problem. The system is potentially the problem. But how does he live with it? And how does he bring out his potential, his resilience? How does he find the joy for learning Spanish? If he's learned Italian, okay, what's stopping you learn the next language? And then the next. And when you've got Spanish, what are you going to do next? And then what are you going to do? And by the time you're 20, you could be a polyglot. And why stop at Latin languages? Go for Chinese, go for Arabic, go for something exotic. Vietnamese, how can this child find the passion for the topic, which will be the fuel and the driving force to help him through all of this dense negativity, which is school system, exams, got to get through it, got to pass. Because if he can find the joy for the language, he will learn the language. And if he learns the language, he'll pass the exam. Okay, you might have to do some tactics and some practice for the exam, but his joy will get him learning. Maybe he could find a pen pal in that language, and they can talk about video games or Ariana, whatever. I have no idea what the pop music is nowadays, but that's the quest here, sparking his passion for learning. And let that be the driving force. Does that help, Andrea?
It does, yes.
Yes, yeah. And seriously, if you want, later we can connect and have a chat privately if I can help anymore.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, I did see a question, Marianne. I think you were asking about the French funding. Now, we've had quite a few people who have received French funding, yes. The major problem is finding the person who does all of that process. So we don't do it from Spain, but some of our trainers in France do actually have that process, that bureaucratic process in place, and maybe we can try and connect you with some of them. So I promise, Marianne, will try to do that. Any other questions? Let me just check. And Norman, yes, I gave you that link about and Virginia, thank you. You've given the link for the Chinese, and that's the link for the other courses. By the way, if you do want a certificate from today, could you please send us an email? As I mentioned, Elsa isn't here because she's not feeling too good. But if you do want a certificate, if you write and request one at info@efficientlanguagecoaching.com, we can send that to you as well. What are you sending me there, Ollie? I can't see what it is. It looks like a dynamite stick.
No, it's chocolate.
Oh, chocolate. How could I forget chocolate?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, but I think I've sent, oh no, Norman, no need to pay for the certificate. No, it's free of charge. Absolutely. I know, I don't know if you know this, Ollie, but I'm not a chocolate person.
What?
I'm not.
Ice cream?
Yes.
Ah, ice cream. Cool.
Okay, there you found my weakest point in life.
Yay.
Yes. But not chocolate ice cream. It would have to be something like dulce de leche or
Oh.
caramello or something like that.
If I don't have ice cream.
I think we all do, absolutely, especially when it's so hot. Any other questions before we close today's session? Now, very excitingly, I sat yesterday creating the next webinars, and we will have a break next week. But then July, we will have a webinar every single Saturday morning. And they're going to be new ones. They're going to be totally new ones. The one on the 4th of July, as I promised you, is going to be about consciousness. So it's going to be about the conscious educator and how we can bring consciousness into what we do. And the week after that, it's actually going to be how we become chameleonic. So how do we bridge structure and spontaneity? That's going to be the 11th. On the 18th, it's going to be about brain-based and metacognitive strategies. And on the 25th, it's going to be about neurolanguage coaching in the classroom. And it's going to be about groups, classrooms, school environments, learning environments. And we're going to tackle that one. Naomi, no, I have never been to Dubai or Abu Dhabi. I'm going to say not yet. I'm going to take a Carol Dweck. Yes, Ollie. Not yet. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here today. If you do have any questions or if there's anything that you would like to know from all of us, even from the community, and I do want to say, just keep on doing what you're doing, because whether you are a neurolanguage coach or not, I know that when you come to my webinars, you are intuitively doing a lot of this. So keep on doing what you're doing. I do believe when more and more of us change, we will start to change the systems. And that's the vision that we all have. So thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful rest of the weekend. And I will see you in 2 weeks' time.
Keep
Bye,
shining.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
bye,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.